The red sky of Corveth Prime burned with endless fire. Volcanoes erupted across the planet's surface, sending rivers of molten rock down the black mountains. The air itself could kill most living things, thick with poison gases that would burn through weak lungs in minutes. This was home to the Corvathians, and they loved every deadly moment of it. Admiral Hyun-Soo stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the violent world below through reinforced windows. His thick, scaled skin bore the scars of 1,000 battles. Each mark told a story of victory against enemies who thought they could challenge the might of the Corvathian Empire. None had succeeded. "Admiral," called out Communications Officer Yoonji from her station. "The morning reports are ready." Hyun-Soo nodded without turning away from the window. The reports would be the same as always. Another day of complete control over 847 star systems. Another day of being the strongest species in their part of the galaxy. Another day of being the only true Deathworlders in existence. The Corvathians had earned that title through 3,000 years of conquest. While other species lived on soft garden worlds with gentle weather and safe environments, the Corvathians had evolved on Corveth Prime. Every day was a fight for survival. Every breath was a victory against a world that wanted them dead. This harsh life had made them into something special. Their bodies could survive in places that would kill other aliens instantly. Their minds were sharp from constant danger. Their hearts beat with the rhythm of war drums. They were apex predators in every sense of the word. Chief Xenobiologist Ji-Woo entered the command deck, carrying a tablet full of data. She was smaller than most Corvathians, but her intelligence made her one of the most respected scientists in the Empire. Her specialty was studying how different species evolved, and she had never found anything as impressive as her own people. "Admiral, I have the latest survey results from the Outer Rim," Ji-Woo said, offering the tablet. Hyun-Soo took the device and scrolled through the information. Star charts, planetary classifications, resource estimates. All routine work for an empire that had mapped most of their local galaxy. The Corvathians had sent probe ships to every corner of space within their reach, always looking for new worlds to claim or new species to absorb into their growing empire. "Anything interesting?" the Admiral asked. "Most systems show the usual pattern. Dead worlds, gas giants, maybe a few primitive life forms. Nothing that would challenge us." Ji-Woo paused, then pointed to a section of the report. "But there is something strange in Sector 847J. Hyun-Soo looked at the data more carefully. Sector 847J was at the very edge of their explored space, in a region they had marked as low priority years ago. The initial surveys had shown only dead star systems with no signs of intelligent life. Our long-range sensors are picking up energy signatures that shouldn't be there," Ji-Woo continued. "The readings suggest advanced technology, but that area was supposed to be empty." The Admiral felt a familiar stirring in his chest. It was the same feeling he got before every great battle or important discovery. Something was out there. Something unknown. In an empire that had cataloged almost everything in their region of space, the unknown was rare and precious. "Could it be equipment failure?" Hyun-Soo asked. "I thought so at first, but 3 different probe ships have confirmed the readings. There's definitely something artificial in that sector, something we missed in our earlier surveys." Taemin, the Admiral's personal bodyguard and elite shock trooper, stepped forward. He was massive even by Corvathian standards, his body a walking weapon forged by years of combat training on the most dangerous worlds in the Empire. Scars covered his arms, like medals of honor. "Permission to speak, Admiral," Taemin said in his deep voice. "Granted. If there's unknown technology in our space, it could be a threat. We should investigate with a full battle fleet." Hyun-Soo smiled, showing teeth designed for tearing through tough meat. This was exactly the kind of thinking that had made the Corvathians the rulers of their galaxy. When faced with the unknown, they didn't hide or send messages. They went in force, ready for anything. "Ji-Woo, What's your assessment of the threat level? The scientist consulted her tablet again. Based on the energy signatures, whatever is out there has technology roughly equal to our own, possibly more advanced in some areas. This was surprising news. The Corvathians had absorbed or destroyed every other advanced civilization they had encountered. Their technology was the result of 3,000 years of taking the best ideas from conquered species and improving them. The idea that someone else might have reached similar levels independently was both exciting and concerning. How is that possible? Taemin asked. We've had contact with every major species in this region. We know their capabilities. That's what makes this interesting, Jiwoo replied. Either we missed something important in our surveys, or this technology belongs to someone who has been very good at staying hidden. Admiral Hyun-soo made his decision quickly, as he always did. Hesitation was weakness, and weakness got you killed on Deathworlds. Prepare the exploration fleet. I want our best ships, our best crews, and full scientific support. We're going to find out who's been hiding in our backyard. How large a fleet, sir? Asked Taemin. Large enough to handle anything we might find, but not so large that we appear. Hostile, 12 battle cruisers, 6 science vessels, and full support craft. If whoever is out there wants to talk, we'll be ready. If they want to fight, we'll be ready for that, too. Jiwoo looked excited at the prospect of studying a new species. It had been decades since the Corvathians had encountered anything truly unknown. Most first contact situations these days involved primitive civilizations that posed no challenge to the Empire. What if they're Deathworlders like us? She asked. The question hung in the air for a moment. In all their years of expansion, the Corvathians had never found another species that had evolved on a truly hostile world. They had begun to believe they were unique in the universe, the only children of violence and chaos. Impossible, Taemin said firmly. There can only be one apex species per galaxy. The universe isn't big enough for 2 races of Deathworlders. Admiral Hyun-soo wasn't so sure. The universe was vast and full of surprises. If there really was another Deathworld species out there, it would explain how they had developed advanced technology without the Corvathians noticing. It would also mean the Empire was about to face its greatest challenge yet. We'll find out soon enough, the Admiral said. Prepare for departure. It's time to meet our mysterious neighbors. The Corvathian exploration fleet moved through space like a pack of metal predators. 12 massive warships surrounded by smaller science vessels, all painted in the deep red colors of the Empire. Admiral Hyun-soo stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Deathbringer, watching the stars ahead grow larger as they approached Sector 847J. It had taken them 2 weeks to reach the edge of known space. 2 weeks of preparation, briefings, and speculation about what they might find. The entire crew was excited. First contact missions were rare and precious opportunities for glory and advancement. Captain Min Ho approached the Admiral with the latest sensor reports. Min Ho was known throughout the fleet for his tactical genius and his ability to stay calm under pressure. If anyone could handle an unexpected situation, it was him. Admiral, we're detecting multiple energy sources ahead. The signatures are definitely artificial, but they're not matching any known technology patterns. How many sources? Hyun-soo asked. At least 20, possibly more. They seem to be spread across several star systems in a rough sphere pattern. This was more extensive than anyone had expected. The original probe reports had suggested a single source of unknown technology. Instead, they were looking at what appeared to be an entire civilization with multiple installations across several solar systems. Jiwoo looked up from her science station, her eyes wide with excitement. Admiral, I'm picking up electromagnetic radiation that looks like communication signals. Someone is definitely trying to talk. Can we understand them? Working on it. The mathematical foundations look familiar, but the language structure is completely new. Diplomatic attaché So Young stepped forward. She was an expert in xenolinguistics, fluent in 47 known galactic languages. Her job was to make first contact as smooth as possible, following the established Corvathian protocols. Admiral, I recommend we follow standard procedures, display our strength first, then offer the standard protection arrangement. The Corvathian way of diplomacy was simple and effective. They would arrive with overwhelming force, demonstrate their superior technology, and then offer the new species a choice. Join the Empire as a client state and enjoy protection, or resist and face destruction. It had worked with every species they had encountered. Communications specialist Yun-Ji suddenly spoke up from her station. Admiral, I'm receiving a direct transmission aimed at our fleet. It's in their language, but they're using basic mathematical concepts to establish communication. Put it through the translators, Hyun-Soo ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life with an alien voice speaking words that slowly became understandable as the translation systems worked. Greetings, unknown visitors. This is the Solar Defense, Network of the Human Federation. We welcome peaceful contact with new civilizations. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. The bridge fell silent. No one had expected such a direct and confident greeting. Most new species they encountered were either afraid or tried to hide when faced with a Corvathian fleet. They're not acting like primitives, Taemin observed. They sound organized and prepared. Solar Defense Network, Minho repeated. That implies military capability. Admiral Hyun-Soo considered the situation. These humans had greeted them politely, but had also made it clear they had defenses. It was a careful balance of friendliness and strength that showed intelligence. So young, respond according to protocol. Tell them we are representatives of the Corvathian Empire, here to establish diplomatic relations. The diplomatic attaché composed a careful message explaining who they were and requesting permission to approach for face-to-face negotiations. She made sure to mention the size of their fleet and their successful expansion across 847 star systems, establishing their credentials as a major power. The response came quickly. Welcome, Corvathian Empire. We are honored by your visit. Permission granted to approach the third planet of our home system for diplomatic meetings. Please be aware that our space is monitored for security purposes. Monitored space, Ji-Woo murmured. That suggests they have extensive sensor networks and patrol ships. As the fleet moved deeper into human territory, the Corvathians began to pick up more detailed information about their hosts. The humans had installations throughout their star system, including what appeared to be colonies on multiple planets and moons. This was impressive for any species, but especially surprising for one the Corvathians had never heard of. Admiral, Yun-Ji called out, I'm intercepting general communication traffic from their civilization. You need to hear this. She played back several translated conversations between human ships and stations. The Corvathians listened in growing amazement as they heard discussions about mining operations in asteroid belts, research stations orbiting gas giants, and terraforming projects on hostile worlds. They're talking about working in vacuum without life support, Taemin said, disbelief in his voice. And something about extreme environment training on a planet with surface temperatures over 400 degrees. Ji-Woo was frantically analyzing every piece of data they collected. Admiral, their home planet is showing some very unusual readings. The atmospheric composition includes oxygen at dangerous levels, and the surface shows evidence of massive tectonic activity. Dangerous oxygen levels? For most species, yes. Oxygen is highly reactive and corrosive. Most civilizations avoid high oxygen environments because they cause rapid aging and cellular damage. This was getting more interesting by the hour. The humans lived in an environment that would be considered toxic by most galactic standards, and they seemed to thrive in it. As they approached the human home system, the Corvathians got their first visual confirmation of human technology. Sleek ships moved between planets with efficient grace. Space stations hung in orbit like artificial moons, clearly designed for heavy industrial use. Their technology is definitely on par with ours, Minho reported. Different design philosophy, but comparable capability. How different? The Admiral asked. They seem to favor efficiency over durability. Our ships are built to survive anything, but theirs are built to be fast and adaptable. The human planet itself was a shock to everyone on the bridge. As they approached orbit, Jiwoo's instruments began registering readings that made her question her equipment. Admiral, this planet is classified as a Class 15 hazard world. According to our databases, it should be completely uninhabitable. Explain. Extreme weather patterns, violent tectonic activity, dangerous radiation levels from their star, and an ecosystem so competitive that most of the life forms would be classified as predators. This world is more hostile than Corveth Prime. The bridge fell silent again. Corveth Prime was considered the harshest inhabited world in known space. The idea that there was an even more dangerous planet with a thriving civilization was difficult to accept. That's impossible, Taemin said. Nothing could evolve intelligence on a world more hostile than ours, but the evidence was right in front of them. Billions of humans lived on this impossible world, and they had built a civilization that spanned multiple star systems. Somehow, somewhere in the galaxy, evolution had produced another species of Deathworlders. Admiral Hyun-Soo felt his worldview shifting. For 3,000 years, the Corvathians had believed they were unique. They were the only species tough enough to survive on a truly hostile world, the only ones who had been forged in the fires of constant danger. Now they were looking at proof that they weren't alone. Prepare for orbital insertion, the Admiral ordered. It's time to meet our fellow Deathworlders face to face. The shuttle bay of the human orbital station was unlike anything the Corvathians had ever seen. Instead of the dark, armored corridors they were used to, everything was bright and clean. The walls were painted in soft colors and strange decorative. Plants grew in containers along the walkways. Admiral Hyun-Soo led the Corvathian delegation off their shuttle, his scaled skin gleaming under the unusual lighting. Behind him walked Jiwoo, So Young, and Taemin, all wearing their best diplomatic armor. They had expected to find a military facility built for war and survival. Instead, they found something that looked almost welcoming. This doesn't look like a Deathworld station, Taemin muttered under his breath. A group of humans approached them, and the Corvathians got their first close look at Earth's dominant species. The humans were smaller than expected, with soft-looking skin and no visible natural weapons. They moved with confidence, but without the aggressive posture the Corvathians associated with apex predators. The lead human stepped forward and spoke, in accented but understandable Corvathian. Welcome to Earth Station 1. I am Dong-Woo, representative of the United Nations First Contact Committee. We are honored to meet representatives of the Corvathian Empire. Admiral Hyun-Soo studied the human carefully. Dong-Woo was tall for his species, but still shorter than any Corvathian. His body looked fragile, without the thick skin and obvious muscle mass that marked a true Deathworlder. Yet there was something in his eyes that suggested hidden strength. I am Admiral Hyun-Soo of the Corvathian Imperial Fleet. We are pleased to make contact with your species. Please follow me to the conference room. We have prepared a briefing about our world and our people. As they walked through the station, the Corvathians noticed more strange details. Humans moved casually through areas that their sensors said contained dangerous levels of oxygen. Children played in recreation areas, laughing and running without any apparent concern for safety. It was all very different from Corvathian society, where constant vigilance was necessary for survival. The conference room had a large window overlooking Earth itself. The planet filled the view, blue and white and green, beautiful in a way that made Jiwoo gasp with surprise. Your planet is remarkable, she said to Dong-Woo. Our sensors indicate it should be uninhabitable, yet it looks like paradise. Dong-Woo smiled, an expression that the Corvathians were still learning to interpret. Earth has its challenges, but we consider ourselves very lucky to live here. Please let me introduce the rest of our team. He gestured to the other humans in the room. This is Haye Jin, our leading expert on extreme planetary environments. Seung-ho commands our orbital defense forces, and Yu-jin studies different cultures and societies. Hye-jin stepped forward, carrying a tablet full of data. We understand you come from Corveth Prime, which our databases classify as a Class 12 hazard world. That's very impressive. Most species could never survive in such conditions. Most species are weak, Tae-min replied automatically. Perhaps, Hee-jin said thoughtfully, but Earth is classified as Class 15. We're curious how your people would handle our environment. The casual way she said it shocked the Corvathians. Humans lived on a Class 15 world and talked about it like it was normal. They had no idea how extraordinary their achievement was. Impossible, Ji-woo said. Our records show that Class 15 worlds cannot support complex life. Would you like to see for yourself? Dong-woo asked. We can arrange a surface visit if you're interested. Admiral Hyun-soo felt a challenge in those words. No Corvathian had ever backed down from a test of survival skills. We accept your invitation. The trip to Earth's surface was an education in human capabilities. The shuttle descended through an atmosphere that should have been toxic, landing on a continent where massive storms raged across the landscape. Yet as they stepped out of the craft, they saw humans working calmly in the distance, apparently unaffected by conditions that would challenge even Corvathian physiology. The weather is mild today, Seung-ho commented as lightning split the sky overhead. You should see it during storm season. They were taken to a human city, built directly on the fault line between tectonic plates. Buildings swayed gently as the ground moved beneath them, but the humans went about their daily business without concern. Children played in parks while earthquakes rumbled underfoot. How do you survive this? So Young asked, her diplomatic training failing her for once. Survive? Yu-jin looked confused. This is just normal life. Earth has always been like this. We adapted to it over millions of years of evolution. But the constant danger, the environmental threats— Oh, you mean like hurricanes and volcanoes? Hee-jin said. Those can be challenging, but they're also exciting. Some humans actually seek them out for recreation. She showed them pictures of humans deliberately entering dangerous areas for something called adventure tourism. Humans climbed active volcanoes, dived into deep ocean trenches, and jumped out of aircraft for fun. The Corvathians stared at the images in disbelief. You risk your lives for entertainment? Tae-min asked. Life is risk, Dong-woo replied simply. We've learned to embrace it, rather than just endure it. As the day continued, the Corvathians witnessed more impossible sights. They saw humans rescue teams working to save people trapped by a landslide, risking their own lives for strangers. They watched construction crews building in areas where toxic gases leaked from the ground, treating the hazard as just another work challenge. Most shocking of all, they saw humans working alongside the planet's natural predators. Large, carnivorous animals that should have been deadly enemies were somehow cooperating with humans, following their commands and even showing affection. They form pack bonds, Yu-jin explained when she saw the Corvathians staring at a human playing with a massive wolf-like creature. Humans have the ability to create social connections with almost any species. It's one of our survival traits. Even with natural enemies? Ji-woo asked. Especially with natural enemies. We find it more efficient to turn predators into allies than to fight them constantly. That evening, as they sat in a human restaurant watching the city lights twinkle below, Admiral Hyun-soo tried to process everything they had learned. The humans were definitely Deathworlders, possibly even more adapted to hostile environments than the Corvathians themselves. But their entire approach to survival was different. Where Corvathians had become strong through combat and competition, humans had become strong through cooperation and adaptation. They didn't just survive their hostile world. They had learned to love it and find joy in its dangers. Your species is remarkable, he told Dongwu. We came here expecting to find primitives or another warrior race. Instead, we found something completely new. And we're fascinated by your people as well, Dongwu replied. We've never met another Deathworld species before. There's so much we could learn from each other. Jiwoo looked up from her notes, where she had been frantically recording observations all day. Admiral, I think we need to completely revise our understanding of Deathworld evolution. The humans have achieved something we thought was impossible. What's that? They've created a civilization based on cooperation rather than domination. They're apex predators who choose to protect rather than conquer. As the Korvathian delegation returned to their ship that night, each of them was lost in thought. They had come to investigate unknown technology and had instead discovered a mirror image of their own evolution, but one that had taken a completely different path. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Korvathians had found equals, not just in strength or technology, but in the most important quality of all, the ability to thrive where others would merely survive. The question now was what both species would do with this knowledge. The joint research station hung in space between Earth and the Korvathian fleet like a bridge between two worlds. Built in just 3 weeks through combined human and Korvathian engineering, it represented something new in galactic history: cooperation between two Deathworld species. Admiral Hyun-soo floated through the station's corridors, still adjusting to the artificial gravity systems the humans preferred. Everything here was a compromise between Korvathian durability and human efficiency. The walls were thick enough to survive a direct hit, but covered with the soft colors and living plants that humans seemed to love. In the command center, he found Commander Sung-ho reviewing tactical displays with Captain Min-ho. The two military leaders had bonded quickly over their shared understanding of strategy and combat, despite coming from completely different worlds. "Admiral," Sung-ho said, looking up from the display, "we were just discussing patrol routes for the station's defense. Your Captain Min-ho has some interesting ideas about asteroid field tactics." "Humans fight differently than we expected," Min-ho admitted. "They don't rely on superior firepower or individual strength. Instead, they use coordination and adaptability." "Show me," Hyun-soo said. Seung-ho activated a tactical simulation showing human and Korvathian ships working together against a theoretical enemy. The display showed how human ships could use their speed and maneuverability to direct enemies toward Korvathian heavy cruisers, creating a hunting pattern that neither species could achieve alone. "It's like pack hunting," Min-ho continued, "but on a fleet scale. We provide the killing blow, but they guide the prey into position." In another section of the station, Jiwoo worked alongside Hyejin in a laboratory filled with soil samples, atmospheric readings, and biological specimens from both worlds. The two scientists had been comparing data non-stop for days, trying to understand how two such different evolutionary paths had produced similar results. "Look at this," Hyejin said, pointing to a DNA analysis on her screen. "Korvathian cellular. Structure is designed to resist damage and repair itself quickly. Human cells are designed to adapt and cooperate with each other." "Two completely different approaches to the same problem," Jiwoo replied. "Your species learned to thrive through flexibility. Ours learned to thrive through toughness." But both approaches work. That's what's so fascinating. They had been discovering parallels and differences all week. Korvathians had thick, armored skin and could survive direct physical trauma that would kill most species. Humans had thin, sensitive skin, but could detect environmental changes and react to threats much faster. Korvathians had powerful individual immune systems that could fight off most diseases alone. Humans had weaker individual immunity, but could share immunity information through their social groups, making their entire population resistant to threats. "It's like comparing a tank to a sports car," Hyejin observed. "Both can get you where you need to go, but they use completely different methods." In the station's recreation area, Taemin was having his own education in human capabilities. He had challenged the human security team to combat training, expecting to easily overpower the smaller, softer-looking creatures. Instead, he found himself face down on the training mat for the third time that morning. "How?" he gasped, looking up at the human instructor who had just thrown him. "Leverage and momentum," the human replied, helping him to his feet. "We can't match your raw strength, so we learn to use physics instead. But you're so small. Size isn't everything in combat. Watch." The human demonstrated how proper technique could allow a smaller fighter to redirect an opponent's strength against them. It was a completely different fighting philosophy from the Corvathian method of overwhelming force. "We don't fight to dominate," the instructor explained. "We fight to protect. That means we need to be efficient, not just powerful." Taemin was beginning to understand that human strength wasn't about individual capability. It was about working together, sharing knowledge, and adapting to any situation. A single human might be weaker than a single Corvathian, but a group of humans working together could accomplish things that no individual could manage alone. Meanwhile, in the diplomatic quarters, So Young sat with Yu Jin, struggling with concepts that didn't translate easily between their languages. The humans had words for ideas that Corvathians had never needed to express. "Explain this empathy again," So Young said, reviewing her notes. "It's the ability to understand how someone else feels, even if they're different from you," Yu Jin replied. "It helps us work together better." "But why would you want to feel what others feel? Wouldn't that make you weak?" "Actually, it makes us stronger. If I understand your emotions, I can predict your actions and work with you more effectively. If I ignore your feelings, we might work against each other by accident." This was a revolutionary concept for Corvathians. Their society was based on individual strength and clear hierarchies. The idea of deliberately trying to understand weakness in others seemed counterproductive. "What about when empathy conflicts with logic?" So Young asked. "That's when it becomes most valuable," Yu Jin explained. "Pure logic would tell us to abandon anyone who can't keep up. Empathy tells us to help them become stronger. Over time, helping others makes the entire group more capable." As the days passed, both species began to change their understanding of what it meant to be strong. The Corvathians learned that humans could endure psychological stress that would break most species, not through individual toughness, but through emotional support systems. Humans learned that Corvathians could survive physical conditions that would be instantly fatal to most life forms, not just through personal resilience, but through careful training passed down through generations. The breakthrough came during an emergency on the station itself. A meteor strike damaged the power systems, threatening life support throughout the facility. The crisis required both species to work together using all their different strengths. Corvathian engineers entered the damaged sections where radiation levels would have killed humans instantly. Human technicians coordinated the repairs from a distance, using their superior pattern recognition to guide the Corvathians through complex procedures. Corvathian security teams held position in areas where atmospheric leaks made breathing impossible. Human medical teams treated injured personnel using techniques that worked on both species' physiologies. In the end, they saved the station through a combination of Corvathian endurance and human cooperation. No single species could have managed the repairs alone, but together they turned a potential disaster into a demonstration of their combined capabilities. Admiral Hyun-soo and Commander Seung-ho met in the repaired command center afterward, both exhausted but satisfied. "Your people saved mine today," Hyun-soo said. "Your people saved mine too," Seung-ho replied. "I think that's the point." They looked out at the stars through the reinforced windows, both thinking about the implications of what they had learned. Two Deathworld species, evolved along completely different paths, had discovered they were stronger together than apart. "What happens now?" Seung-ho asked. Now we decide whether the galaxy is big enough for two apex species, Hyun-Soo replied, or whether we're ready to become something new. In the laboratory, Ji-Woo and Hye-Jin were still working, but now they were designing joint research projects that would benefit both civilizations. In the training rooms, Korvathian and human soldiers were learning each other's techniques, creating new forms of combat that combined the best of both approaches. The universe had just become a more interesting place. Two species that had thought they were alone at the top of the evolutionary ladder had found each other, and neither would ever be the same again. The news of humanity's discovery spread through the Korvathian Empire like wildfire. On every world, in every city, citizens gathered around communication screens to learn about the impossible species that lived on an even deadlier world than Corveth Prime. General Kyung-Soo stood in his private office on the military fortress world of Korvan 7, watching the reports with growing anger. He was a traditionalist, a believer in Korvathian superiority who had spent his entire career defending the Empire's dominance. The idea that another Deathworld species existed challenged everything he held sacred. "This is unacceptable," he said to his aide, Colonel Jae-won. "We cannot allow these humans to threaten our position as the galaxy's apex species." "Sir, Admiral, Hyun-Soo's reports suggest they have no hostile intentions. They seem interested in peaceful cooperation." "Peaceful cooperation is what weak species do," Kyung-Soo snapped. "True Deathworlders compete. There can only be one dominant force in this galaxy." On Corveth Prime, the Imperial Council was meeting in emergency session. Representatives from across the Empire debated what to do about this new discovery. Some saw opportunity in alliance with another powerful species. Others saw only threat. Chancellor Sang-mi, the Empire's chief civilian leader, struggled to maintain order as arguments erupted across the council chamber. "The humans have technology we could use," argued Science Minister Hae-won. "Their adaptation techniques could help us colonize worlds we've never been able to settle. Or they could use their technology against us," countered Defense Minister Jong-soo. "We know nothing about their true intentions. They could be planning an invasion right now." Meanwhile, on the Joint Research Station, Admiral Hyun-Soo received increasingly urgent messages from home. Political pressure was building for him to take a harder stance with the humans. Some council members wanted him to demand tribute or territorial concessions, following traditional Korvathian expansion policies. Dongwoo noticed the change in the Admiral's behavior during their daily briefings. The Korvathian leader seemed distracted and troubled. "Is everything all right?" Dongwoo asked during a private meeting. "My government is concerned about the implications of our contact," Hyun-Soo admitted. "Some believe that two Deathworld species cannot coexist peacefully." "What do you believe?" The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Over the past weeks, he had seen things that challenged his fundamental understanding of strength and survival. The humans had shown him that apex predators could choose cooperation over conquest. "I believe we have much to learn from each other," he said finally. "But I may not have the authority to continue this cooperation much longer." The situation became critical when long-range sensors detected something that hadn't been seen in centuries: void swarm scouts on the edge of both human and Korvathian space. Ji-Woo burst into the station's command center with her analysis, her usual calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled panic. "Admiral Commander Sung-ho, you need to see this immediately," she said, activating the main display. The screen showed sensor readings from the Outer Rim territories, displaying movement patterns that made both human and Korvathian officers go cold with recognition. "Void swarm," Hyun-Soo whispered. "You know about them?" Sung-ho asked. "They destroyed our original homeworld 2,000 years ago. We thought they were extinct." Hye-jin studied the data with growing alarm. "These readings match historical accounts. In our archives, too. Ancient records speak of a life-eating darkness that consumed entire biospheres." The Void Swarm was humanity's oldest nightmare and the Korvathians' greatest historical enemy. They were not truly alive in any recognizable sense, but rather a collection of artificial entities that consumed biological matter to fuel their expansion across the galaxy. They had been dormant for centuries, but something had awakened them. How? Long before they reach inhabited systems? Sheng-Ho asked. At current speed, 6 months to the outer colonies, Ji-Woo replied. Maybe 8 months to reach Earth or Corvith Prime. The research station suddenly became a war room as both species struggled to understand the threat they faced. Communication. Channels open to both governments as military advisors and scientists shared everything they knew about their ancient enemy. On Corvith Prime, the news of the Void Swarm's return ended all political debates about human relations. Faced with an existential threat, even General Kyung-Soo realized that old prejudices were less important than survival. "How many ships can we deploy?" he asked his staff during an emergency planning session. "Our entire battle fleet numbers 2,147 vessels," Admiral Wu Jin reported. "But based on historical records, that may not be enough. The swarm destroyed fleets twice that size during the last invasion." "What about the humans?" "Unknown, sir. We're still gathering intelligence on their military capabilities. On Earth, the United Nations Security Council was holding its own crisis meetings. The revelation that humanity's new alien friends came with ancient enemies was sobering news for a species that had only recently learned they weren't alone in the universe. President Li Na addressed the emergency session via hologram from the Lunar Command Center. "How do we fight something that eats entire planets?" "We don't fight it alone," replied Admiral Park, the head of Earth's space forces. "The Korvathians have experience with this enemy. They know its weaknesses." "Do they?" "They survived the last encounter. That means they found a way to hurt it." Back on the research station, Taemin found himself working alongside Human Special Forces Commander Kim Tae-hyun, planning defensive strategies that neither species could implement alone. The irony was not lost on him that he was preparing to fight alongside the same humans he had once viewed as potential rivals. "Your people have fought these things before," Tae-hyun said. "What worked?" "Fire," Taemin replied grimly. "Lots of fire. The swarm entities hate extreme heat, but they adapt quickly. What worked once might not work again. Then we need to be more creative than they are." Yujin spent her time analyzing void swarm behavior patterns from both human and Korvathian historical records. What she found was disturbing. The swarm specifically targeted Deathworld species. "They don't attack garden worlds with soft species," she explained to So Young during one of their research sessions. "They go after the strongest civilizations first, the ones that pose the greatest threat to their expansion." Why? Think about it from their perspective. If you're going to consume a galaxy, you eliminate the apex predators first, then the prey species have no protection. The implications were clear. Humanity and the Korvathians weren't just potential allies. They were the swarm's primary targets, possibly the only species in their region of space with the strength to resist the invasion. As reports came in of outer settlements going dark, both species realized they faced a choice that would define their future. They could maintain their separate territories and fight the swarm individually, likely losing everything they had built, or they could combine their strengths and face the ancient enemy as one unified force. Admiral Hyun-soo and Commander Sung-ho stood together in the station's observation deck, watching their respective fleets maneuver in joint training exercises. The sight would have been impossible just months ago. Human and Korvathian ships moving in perfect coordination, their crews learning to fight as one. "Are we ready for this?" Sung-ho asked. "No," Hyun-soo replied honestly. "But we're stronger. Together than we would be apart. That has to be enough." In the distance, warning lights flashed on both fleets as scouts reported more void swarm activity. The ancient enemy was coming, and the galaxy's two Deathworld species would soon learn whether cooperation really was stronger than competition. The combined fleet hung in space like a constellation of death and hope. 3,000 Corvathian warships and 1,500 human vessels moved together in formations that would have been impossible just months ago. At the center of it all, Admiral Hyun-soo and Commander Seung-ho coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history from their joint command ship. The Void Swarm had emerged from the dark spaces between stars like a plague of living metal. Their ships were not built, but grown, organic-looking constructs that consumed everything in their path. They moved in perfect coordination, millions of entities acting as one massive organism with a single purpose: to devour all biological life. In the galaxy, Swarm Vanguard is approaching the Kepler 442 system, reported Communications Officer Yoon-ji. Colony ships are evacuating, but they won't all make it out in time. Hyun-soo studied the tactical display showing the approaching enemy. The swarm had grown since their last encounter with the Corvathians 2,000 years ago. What had once been thousands of ships was now millions, a living tide of destruction that seemed unstoppable. "All fleet units, this is Admiral Hyun-soo," he broadcast to the combined armada. "Today we prove that Deathworld species don't just survive, we protect." The first engagement took place in the asteroid belt of the Kepler system. Human ships, with their superior speed and maneuverability, darted between the rocks like schools of fish, drawing swarm entities into carefully prepared killing zones. Corvathian heavy cruisers waited in ambush, their weapon systems designed to deliver devastating firepower at close range. Captain Minho commanded the Corvathian battle group with the precision of a master tactician. "Wait for it," he told his gunners as swarm ships pursued the retreating human vessels. "Wait for it! Now!" The asteroids exploded in coordinated sequence, human engineering turning the entire belt into a massive trap. Thousands of swarm entities were destroyed in the initial barrage, but thousands more kept coming. "They're adapting," Seung-ho observed as he watched the enemy formation change. "They're learning from our tactics." "Then we adapt faster," Hyun-soo replied. On the ground, joint human Corvathian teams worked to evacuate the threatened colonies. Taemin led a mixed unit of soldiers through the burning streets of New Geneva, a human settlement that had been partially overrun by swarm ground forces. The swarm soldiers were nightmarish creatures that seemed to be part machine, part living tissue. They moved with inhuman speed and showed no fear of death, since they weren't truly alive in any recognizable sense. "Covering fire!" shouted Human Sergeant Mei Ri as she and her team laid down suppressing fire with plasma rifles. Her shots were precise and efficient, each burst calculated to disable rather than just destroy. Taemin charged through the enemy line with the raw power that made Corvathians legendary. His armored skin deflected shots that would have killed most beings, and his strength allowed him to physically tear apart swarm constructs with his bare hands. But it was their cooperation that made the difference. Mei Ri's tactical coordination guided Taemin's assault, while his resilience allowed her team to advance through areas too dangerous for humans to enter alone. Together they saved 3,000 colonists who would have died without their combined efforts. In space, the main battle raged across 3 star systems simultaneously. Ji-woo and Haijin worked together in the fleet's mobile laboratory, analyzing captured swarm technology and looking for weaknesses their ancestors might have missed. "Look at this cellular structure," Haijin said, pointing to a microscopic image of swarm tissue. "It's designed to consume and replicate biological matter, but it has trouble processing synthetic materials. Our ancestors fought them with fire because heat disrupts their molecular bonds," Ji-woo added. "But what if we attack their ability to process organic matter instead?" Working together, the two scientists developed a new weapon, nanoparticles, that would interfere with the swarm's digestion process, essentially giving them galactic indigestion. It was a solution that neither species could have developed alone, requiring human understanding of biological systems and Corvathian knowledge of swarm physiology. The tide of battle began to turn when the combined fleet implemented the new strategy. Human ships deployed the nano-weapon while Corvathian vessels provided cover and heavy firepower. The effect was immediate and devastating. Swarm entities that absorbed the treated particles began to malfunction and break apart. General Kyung-soo, commanding the Corvathian reserves, watched in amazement as the strategy succeeded beyond all expectations. He had spent months opposing cooperation with the humans, but now he could see the wisdom of the alliance. All Corvathian forces, advance and support our human allies, he ordered, his pride in Corvathian superiority replaced by respect for human ingenuity. The final battle took place in the void between galaxies, where the swarm had established its central hive mind. The structure was massive beyond comprehension, a living planet that coordinated the entire invasion force. Both Admiral Hyun-soo and Commander Sung-ho knew that destroying the hive mind was the only way to stop the swarm permanently. But the mission would require the ultimate cooperation, a joint assault by the best of both species. Taemin and a team of human special forces infiltrated the hive mind while the fleets kept the swarm defenders busy. Inside the alien structure, they found something that explained why the swarm had returned after centuries of dormancy. "It's been waiting," Taemin reported over the communication link. "The swarm detected the radio signals from our first contact. It knew there were now 2 Deathworld species in the galaxy." "Why does that matter?" Sung-ho asked. Human Commando Jae-sung answered while setting demolition charges. "Because we're the only species strong enough to eventually threaten its expansion into other galaxies. It came back to eliminate us before we could spread further." The revelation was sobering. The swarm hadn't returned by accident. It had specifically come to destroy humanity and the Corvathians because their combined potential made them too dangerous to ignore. "Then we prove it right to be afraid," Admiral Hyun-soo said grimly. The destruction of the hive mind created a chain reaction that spread throughout the swarm fleet. Without central coordination, the individual entities became confused and vulnerable. The combined human Corvathian fleet systematically hunted down the remaining swarm ships, ensuring that none would survive to threaten the galaxy again. In the aftermath of victory, both species found themselves changed by the experience. The Corvathians had learned that strength could be multiplied through cooperation. Humans had discovered that they were not alone among the galaxy's apex species. On the Joint Research Station, now permanently established as a symbol of their alliance, Admiral Hyun-soo and Commander Sung-ho looked out at the stars with new understanding. "The galaxy is safer now," Sung-ho observed. "For everyone," Hyun-soo agreed. "Deathworld species don't just survive or conquer. We protect those who cannot protect themselves." Tae-min, now wearing insignia that combined human and Corvathian military symbols, had become the leader of the new Joint Special Forces. His philosophy had evolved from individual dominance to pack protection, influenced by months of working alongside human soldiers. Ji-woo and Hye-jin continued their research, but now they studied how different species could work together rather than just how they survived alone. Their joint institute became the center of a new science, symbiotic evolution. Years later, when other species encountered the human Corvathian alliance, they found something unprecedented in galactic history. 2 apex predator species that had chosen cooperation over competition, protection over conquest. The galaxy's Deathworlders had become its guardians. Children of both species grew up learning each other's languages and customs. Human pack bonding instincts extended to include Corvathians, while Corvathian individual strength was channeled toward protecting the pack. Together they represented something new in the universe: apex symbiosis. The discovery that they were not alone had changed everything. Two species that thought they were the galaxy's only Deathworlders had found each other and, in doing so, had redefined what it meant to be strong. They were no longer just survivors or conquerors. They were protectors, guardians of a galaxy that was safer because two apex species had chosen to work together rather than stand apart. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of possibilities. And somewhere in the dark, between the stars, other Deathworld species might be waiting to join the alliance that had proven cooperation was the ultimate evolution of strength.